is going to be a grand slam home run. Swing and drive. Belton right. Welcome to the show.
New week of the call up here, and we are talking about prospects 60 to 41 on this top 100 list as we continue to kind of fly through this top 100 update at justbaseball.com. I'm Aram Layton. He's Jack McMullen. Again, a reminder that you can you can read along with us with the link in the episode description. Jack, it was a little bit of a crazy weekend, I would say, into Monday morning, I guess Sunday evening with promotions. We got a lot of different players kind of going all over the place. I think the most surprising before we jump into the top 60 here, Ethan Salas going to Double-A. You were just talking me into Fort Wayne and why it makes sense for Ethan Salas. Nope. Ethan Salas, and we're not going to get to Ethan Salas until the last episode. Spoiler alert. Again, You can click the link in the episode description to spoil the rest of the list for yourself. I'm sure you have already. Jack, Ethan Salas to Double.
Yeah. Do you want me to just confirm that it makes no sense? Because it makes no sense. Like, I thought this was as I don't want to say stupid, but I'm gonna say stupid. This was as stupid a decision as I think I've seen. A 17-year-old catcher that had a 470 OPS in high A
for like 9 games.
For 9 games, he caught 5 of the 9. He's getting the bump to Double. In the words of Taylor Twellman, the soccer great, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? That was really weird. I like what else the Padres did. Robbie Snelling to Double-A
that
as
makes
well.
sense.
Martorella to Double-A made a lot of
sense.
Dylan Head off the complex made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got this 17-year-old catcher that's going up to Double-A when he frankly shouldn't be. So
yeah,
that was so idiotic, man.
Look, I hope there's a specific kind of all the same things we said about Fort Wayne. I hope that's the case with Double-A. What is it? San Antonio?
San Antonio.
Yeah, I hope maybe that's the case with San Antonio. Yeah, I guess coaching, whatever it may be, it's going to be a lot to handle 23, 24, 25-year-old arms. It's going to be a lot to hit against 23, 24, 25-year-old arms. So, I mean, Ethan Salas is special talent. It's a testament to the fact that, like, they can even consider this is a testament to his makeup and, you know, how advanced he is as a player. But it also is still outrageous, no matter how, if he's the most mature 17-year-old in the history of planet Earth, which, you know, I think he'd be up there with like Tutankhamun or something like that. Like,
yeah, I think Amanda Gorman wrote that poem at Biden's inauguration. I think she's up there too. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
But yeah, like it's still aggressive. It's still aggressive. But, you know, I'm excited for Snelling because, again, pitchers a little bit different, especially 3 pitches for a strike already. Athletic arm like Snelling is. I love the more aggressive push of him. And again, we're gonna get into some of these guys that recently were promoted in this episode, and a couple more. I would say only a couple more draft guys, which is fun. We're going to get to the top draft guys at the end, and then there's a few more of the later draft guys that we really like. And by later, I say like middle of the first round. Are there any other like big league promotions or anything that we're missing?
Yeah,
Kyle
Harrison to the show. Drew Rahm to the show as well. Mason Winn. Do we talk about Winn going to the show?
I don't know.
I don't think
it's all a blur.
Yeah.
Mason Winn going to the show is absolutely awesome. You know, we can start with that. Like, I know you're a big Mason Winn guy. You're a big reason why he is so high on the list. And I mean, this is somebody that I think has been aggressively pushed at every stop, reasonably aggressively pushed at every stop. And, you know, it's had this like acclimation process. We saw it last year and then just really hits his stride. And then we saw it again this year. And I think we'll see something similar in the big leagues. And I think that's why they brought him up. It might not be, you know, a beautiful stat line at the end of the year for him in the big leagues, but he has that acclimation process. He goes into the offseason, and I think he's going to come back next year ready to go, preserving that rookie eligibility. They can probably get the draft pick too. It gives him a better shot to get the draft pick because just judging by history, Jack, like Mason Winn's somebody that continues to like learn on the fly really well. and adjust really well. So I think this is a great decision to bring him up with the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I think when we forecast the 2024 Rookie of the Year races in the National League, I think Mason Winn should be seriously considered. I think the other two that should be considered are probably Paul Skeens and Cruz, I guess.
It'll be interesting to see.
And I'm missing somebody for sure, but like I think Mason Winn, if this guy has rookie eligibility next year, I think that this guy should be one of the front runners for National League Rookie of the Year because he has that acclimation process. And dude, he is like, I mean, he's tooled out beyond belief. And I think a lot of people that follow prospects know how tooled out he is. He doesn't look like O'Neal Cruz. He doesn't look like Ellie De La Cruz. I just made this point on the Just Baseball show. But what this guy does defensively is Ellie and O'Neal adjacent. It is electrifying. And the fact that he's been hitting the ball as hard as he has and been lifting it as well as he has, I think, I don't want to say the sky's the limit for him, but I think he can be one of the better shortstops in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's limiting is the power, to stop him from that like superstar potential. But the hit tool being way closer to above average to almost plus at points that we've seen this year. And then again, I think the power is severely undersold. People talk about him like he's a 10 home run guy. I think there's a world where he can hit 20 as he continues to fill out. Real quick on Kyle Harrison, all the reasons but you can go back and listen to the episode. It was the first one, 100 to 81, where we break down Kyle Harrison, and some of the concerns that I have there, that we have there around the command. The delivery is a lot, it's a reliever's delivery to a degree. And I think that's why we've seen some struggles there, but most notably and most importantly, change in the slider shape, fastball shape, lost several inches of horizontal, and the changeup has been unusable. He's thrown 6 changeups in his last 6 appearances, period, because over the course of this year, he's only thrown it for a strike 40% of the time. So you're looking at a guy that's really fastball, slider. I think he's tried to kind of mix a cutter in now. And that just shows me that's a guy that's kind of like in fight or flight, because the changeup was a big part of what he was doing last year. I think what we're going to end up seeing is Kyle Harrison throwing 75, 80% fastballs, and he can succeed to a degree that way. But, I'm interested to see how it goes. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he dominates. But I think this is a Giants team that's just kind of all hands on deck. They've been all year with Casey Schmidt, with Marco Luciano. Now they're doing it with Kyle Harrison. Not Cade Marlowe. The other guy that they
Wade Meckler.
Wade Meckler, bro. They didn't even need to add him to the 40-man for 2 more years. They add Meckler to the 40-man, obviously, to bring him up. Now they're going to have even more of a crunch going into the offseason. Like, they're all hands on deck. So it should be interesting to see. But, I support it. I'm glad he gets his clock going. And, I think if he's going to figure it out, it wasn't going to happen in triple. Might as well see if it can happen at the big league level.
For sure. Now, one quick follow-up on Harrison, and I guess pitting him against another lefty in that organization, because they have 2 of the better left-handed pitching prospects in all of baseball. If you were starting an organization from scratch and you were given one of those left-handed pitching prospects, Kyle Harrison or Carson Whisenhunt, in an expansion draft type thing, which one are you taking?
God, that's really tough.
Yep.
That's really tough. I want to say Harrison.
And that's the thing. The hesitation is all I needed to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that's supposed to be a consensus top 100 or top left-handed pitching prospect in baseball.
Yep.
I'd probably take Harrison off talent and figure that, we can adjust some things. And, Whisenhunt's, there's a maximum there. But yeah, it's a great conversation. The fact that it's a conversation is pretty absurd.
Yeah.
And shows kind of where we're at. But let's jump into it. Number 60, we got Kyle Teel, catcher, Boston Red Sox. I think there's no way anyone's going to have him higher, because I think the way he slipped in the draft may have put off people, put off evaluators. Like, hey, should we really have him in the top 60 if he fell, out of the top 10 and to number 14 to the Boston Red Sox? I can't believe this dude fell. I really can't. He did everything you'd want to see at UVA. I know it wasn't for 3 straight years, but we saw him perform steadily better in the sophomore year, and then really broke out the junior year, improved defensively. There's the big thing for me with Teel is you look at his build, it's very wiry. Like, there's room for more strength, and he swings the crap out of that bat. Like, it's controlled aggression, and he's been awesome to start his professional career. They signed him straight to high A. He has looked pretty good defensively. He's been gunning down runners. And also, I mean, just not swinging and missing, The approach has been great. My question is how much power is there? But so far, it seems like there's at least going to be average. Maybe you can get slightly above. And again, I think he can fill out. But between his ability to limit the run game, a left-handed hitting catcher, as athletic as he is, with the field of hit that he has, I think a lot of teams are going to regret passing on him in the top 13 picks.
I think so too. And I think that what I see when I watched Kyle Teel at Virginia this spring was almost what a lot of people were dreaming on with Gabby Moreno. But Moreno, obviously the elevated hit tool, like Moreno was probably a 70 hit guy. Mm-hmm. Teel is, 50 right now. You've got a 60 future.
I think he'll be a plus hit tool guy by the time we get to next year.
So plus hitting, wiry catcher that's a underrated runner. You've got a 50 run on him. Like that just screams Moreno. And Moreno may have a little bit more defensive gift than Kyle Teel, but like, listen, Moreno is far elevated. There's a reason Gabby Moreno is a top 10 prospect in baseball. But yeah, I look at Teel and I saw a Moreno starter kit. Is that fair?
I think it's very fair. I think there's a lot of similarities there in terms of plus hit, athleticism. I think Teal's going to be an above average defender too. So, there's from a pure tool standpoint, like it's funny, they look so different, but from a production and tool standpoint, I think you're getting something very similar. So I don't disagree at all. If you look at the first 10 games or so, it's too small of a sample to be looking at overall contact rates. But again, like what else are we going to look at through the first 10 games? Like you can only look at what you've got. He's barely swung and missed. I don't think he's swung and missed at a breaking ball so far professionally, if I'm not mistaken. And then also, is just kind of spraying the ball all over, lifts the ball already, pretty well. Again, if he could just put on like 5 or 10 pounds of muscle, like he's skinny. I think you could see above average power here. And then all of a sudden we're looking at a guy who could be not only fast tracked, but one of the best catching prospects in baseball. I think some teams, people talk about Dylan Cruz being like overthought a little bit. I think there was more at hand there. I think with Kyle Teel, it was just point blank teams overthought this one a little bit. And you can say what you want about the Red Sox. You can say what you want about, Chaim Bloom. One thing he's done a pretty good job of over the last couple of years is draft. And, I know they were thrilled when Marcelo Meyer fell into their lap. And I think they were thrilled when Kyle Teel fell into their lap.
100%.
We get 259, another draft guy. And a guy that, I don't know. This seemed like the most shoe-in pick outside of the top 5 that when we mocked it, I was just like, this just seems like a layup. Rhett Lowder to the Cincinnati Reds. Like this just seemed like it was always going to happen. It seemed inevitable, right?
Yes. I think what we looked at was, okay, the Cincinnati Reds are either going to go with Rhett Lowder or Kyle Teel. And they opted for Lowder. And listen, they just added their best pitching prospect in their organization. I think he already hops over Connor Phillips. You've got him already hopped over Connor Phillips. And, Chase Petty, while he has looked good, Lowder is just better, man.
Yeah.
We were jaw on the floor in that semifinal game between Skeens and Lowder. That was one of the better non-professional baseball games of recent memory. Yeah. And I think that Lowder totally proved his top 10 pedigree there, which was freaking awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, I came away, as weird as it sounds, because obviously Skeens was better in that start because he's Paul Skeens. I came away from that start more impressed by Lowder because, I knew both of them were fantastic pitchers. But Paul Skeens is was the dude, absolutely dominant. Rhett Lowder, everyone's talking about, fastball quality and, how good is this stuff going to ultimately be? And he goes against this juggernaut lineup. And I was floored by the stuff. I thought it was, and you can see, I thought it was a pair of really solid secondaries that, maybe in a vacuum, if you look at the shape, just pure pitch data, maybe they're 55 grade pitches, but his ability to command them makes him 60s for me. That's the slider. That's the changeup. I mean, he was spotting them, and not just in that start. You look at the course of the season. I mean, he was all over the strike zone. 74% strike rate on his slider over his last handful of starts over the course of the season. 72% strike rate on the slider, 65% strike rate on the changeup, 72% strike rate on the fastball. That will play. He has the ability to sequence. His pitch ability is just so impressive. Catchers must have a field day working with him because you can go to any pitch and any count, and that there's a really good chance that he's going to hit his spot. I have better than plus command for this guy. And again, if the fastball ends up being average, he hedges that because he's got the 4-seamer and he's got the 2-seam/sink, which is, again, great for a Great American Ballpark, but also just helps kind of hedge like, hey, I'm not going to get a ton of whiffs with my heater. I can also get ground balls too. I don't know. There's not much to not like with Lowder other than some of the rumors about his health. I do think it's interesting that he hasn't started yet at all. Has Dolander thrown either?
I don't think Dolander's thrown.
Yeah, so I wouldn't speculate too much there. Also, Lowder, like, they were very much managing his workload at Wake Forest because that's what they do. It wasn't Lowder, unique. But I feel like this is as safe of an arm as you're going to pick up. I think he can fly through the minor leagues. They don't need to waste many bullets here. And I think he could be a competitive pitcher for them. I have a 2025 ETA, but honestly, I could see him up at some point next year.
Yeah, great point that you just made about his 2-seam type sink run, like playing well at Great American Ballpark. Look who the better of the two young pitchers is between Lodolo and Green. Like, I just think Lodolo is better than Hunter Green.
Yeah.
And like I said, ballpark has something to do with that. If they were throwing in Detroit, it might be a different story, but they're throwing 100%. In Cincinnati. And I do think that, at points you have to draft for your situation. And I think that the Reds picked a great arm for their situation. I think the Rockies have done it recently with Dolander and Gabriel Hughes last year in the first round. You've been dealt a crappy hand. How do you deal with it? And I think the Reds have dealt with it pretty well.
100%. We get to number 58 here, and a left-handed pitching prospect who was just promoted to double, and that'll probably adjust the ETA to 2025. So Robbie Snelling, left-handed pitching prospect, San Diego Padres. This is a guy that I would be 100% fine aggressively pushing, right? Like, this makes all the sense in the world. We just talked about it with Walker Buehler on the Just Baseball show about aggressive assignments and pushing guys, and how different it is for pitchers, because pitchers, you can look at a pitch shape and say, hey, like this exact pitch profile plays against AA, AAA, big league competition. You can't look at contact rates and say, oh yeah, that'll play against AA, because you don't know if those contact rates will sustain. You can't look at exit velocities and say, hey, this will sustain. The only thing that really translate, and it still doesn't totally translate, is like chase rates, and those will be elevated if the stuff is better and you're not used to recognizing that. So totally different. Don't want to digress too far there. I love this push of Robbie Snelling because I think he's downright earned it, Jack. I mean, I'm sure you have the numbers queued up. He's been fantastic overall this season. I mean, he's just been pretty much a walking quality start. He's already stretched out too, which is interesting. Like, he's thrown a lot of pitches in these starts. 19 years old. Fastball sits 93, can get up to a 4 or 5. I think he's touched a 7 this year, but it's relatively rare. Curveball feel is phenomenal. I mean, he can throw it in any count. He can manipulate it to be a little bit more, have a little bit more depth, to be a little bit harder in the low 80s. And then the changeup's a work in progress, but I think it's better than most of the high school arms that we say their changeup is a work in progress. And it's been used a little bit. I think this is where it's going to be more challenging for him, and he'll probably need it a little bit more. And I'm interested to see how that changeup develops. But the fastball and curveball, man, those are ready for AA.
So I know Cade Horton is probably your leader in the clubhouse for minor league pitcher of the year this year. But if you wouldn't mind me making the case for Robbie Snelling, this guy had a sub-2, yes, a 1.57 ERA and 11 starts in Lake Elsinore. That doesn't happen in Lake Elsinore. That's inland California. It's PCL adjacent. And this guy had a 1.57. He was better than the level. He goes to Fort Wayne for 7 starts. He has a 2.3. So you combine his numbers over 86 and a third. He's got a 1.88 ERA, 10.5 Ks per 9, 2.5 walks per 9. And oh, by the way, he's faced 343 hitters. Do you know how many home runs he's given up?
1?
3. That's less than 1%. 3 of 343 batters faced.
That's insane.
In Lake Elsinore for 11 starts. So the thing about Snelling, like, yes, he's physically advanced. Yes, he's got command. My thing here is like, okay, you push guys' levels. I'm with you. Pitchers, like, you can see pitch data and all that, and you can say, okay, we've seen guys perform well at the major league level with this type of pitch data. Like guys in the top 100, Robbie Snelling can go get outs. The best version of Robbie Snelling can go get outs in the major leagues right now. But the thing that separates, these guys, Snelling is 19 years old, versus a major league pitcher is the mental makeup, right? It's, do I have the confidence to go do it? And I think that is the big separator, and Snelling throws like he's got confidence. So I think that guy can get outs anywhere right now.
He throws like a guy that was a Power 5, caliber linebacker. Like he's not scared of you, man. He goes after you. And
I think football mentality is a little overblown, but this guy totally has like a football, like I'm going to beat you physically. Right now.
Yeah. And he goes right at guys, and it's really fun. And what I like is like, I was watching the last start, and he's going, first pitch breaking ball, and then next pitch right off of that is a fastball that, just jumps after seeing that curveball kind of breaking downwards. And, again, and the fastball is only quote unquote, 93 to 94, but it looks like it gets on guys so much quicker. He gets good extension for a guy that's, he's tall and long, but he's not like huge. He's 6'3". But it just gets on you quick. It's around 18 to 19 inches of IVB, so it jumps a little bit with the curveball tunneling off of that. I really think that's the big factor here, is those two pitches tunnel off of each other really well, which again takes some of the pressure off of the third pitch. If the changeup can even be average, I think he's in really good shape, because the way that the fastball tunnels off of the curveball and the feel for the curveball and the way he hides the baseball. But yeah, it looks like it really gets in on hitters quickly, and there's a lot of uncomfortable swings. Snelling, I think, is one of the safer, high school arms you're going to find, and one of the safer pitching prospects we have right now at 19 years old, which says a lot about him and kind of the state of volatility with pitching prospects. But, the fact that he's thrown 90 pitches plus in the last, or 89 pitches plus in the last 3 outings, it kind of shows you, like, for the pitcher of the year case, like in the minor leagues, he's not being babied. He's being stretched out and thrown into the fire, which is fun
for sure.
We get to a guy. Oh, there's the other guy that we forgot to mention in the promotions. Noelvi Marte. Noelvi Marte just got promoted. Cincinnati Reds. It's gonna be a good challenge for him. I do think that he can help them offensively in spurts. I think they're going to put him in positions to succeed. Third base prospect who. I mean, look, it's one of those guys that you feel like he's not doing as well as he's doing when you watch. And then you look at the stat line on the year and you're like, this guy just continues to produce. Like he produced last year, he produced the year before that, and he's producing this year. There's a lot of frustration because it's like 2-0 count. There'll be a change up off the plate away and he rolls over and you're like, ugh. But again, you look at the stat line and he's productive because he doesn't miss mistakes. He has an unbelievable feel to hit for a guy as powerful as he is. And really, it's just the approach that undermines it. I think just on pure bat-to-ball skills, he could be a well above average hitter, but the approach is just an issue. And it's beyond the approach. It's the approach that seeps into the swing. The desire to yank, results in a pull-off, and it results in, I think, also expanding the zone. The thing is when he's right, when he's focused in and he's using the whole field, there's special offensive potential here. I mean, it's plus power, above average hit potential. And, you put that in Great American Ballpark, this guy could be a monster. I think you got to take the good with the bad. They're going to do that right now, but it's worth the spark plug that he might be able to provide. But he might just be one of those guys that frustrates you until he figures it out, or just always frustrates you.
Yeah, he is. He's a frustrating watch for sure. And this guy, when I've seen him, he's really struggled at third base. I don't know if he's like big league ready at third base. And this guy needed to move off of shortstop last year. Righty sliders are going to give me nightmares in that matchup with Noelvi Marte. Like, I just don't know if he can handle that. It's not Baez bad, but it's approaching that level. Where like, I don't know, it really concerns me. Pitches outside, he loves extending his hands and trying to go fish some things out. But yeah, man, like when this guy's going right, it's a different level of electric.
And that's the thing. And this is another one of those examples where it's like, okay, like I think they've been struggling to get through to him on the approach and on the ability to kind of, not try to get out and around everything. Maybe working with some guys at the big league level and being involved there and working with big league hitting coaches and I don't know, just being with guys that have been swinging it pretty well up there. Maybe something can click for him because, again, like he's just going to sit in AAA. He's going to frustrate you a couple times a game. He's going to hit some bombs. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's not going to strike out that much, and he's going to produce, and he's not going to be forced to have to, like, really change anything. I think at the big leagues, it's fight or flight mode. He's going to have to figure some things out. And I think this is the perfect kind of challenge for him. Either spark plugs your team or it's kind of this shake of like, hey, this is what you're going to have to be able to handle. So, work on some things here. So I think it's a good thing for Marte long-term. And, if it all clicks for him, he can be really, really special.
Yep.
Number 56. This is becoming one of my favorite guys in minor league baseball. I think he's going to be a monster. Xavier Isaac, first base prospect, Tampa Bay Rays. This guy's going to be a monster. It's just that simple. First round pick in 2022, first baseman, left-handed hitter, big dude, 6'4", 240. Quickly becoming one of my favorite hitters to watch because it's a combination of, at 19 years old, a combination of monstrous power and adjustability that is extremely impressive. I've seen this guy take some B swings, maybe even C swings, where he's hitting the ball out of there. Like, he's on his front foot fooled and he's crushing one pull side. He's tied up and he somehow stays short to the ball and fights it over the wall in right field. And then he gets these A swings off sometimes and it's like, holy crap. 90th percentile exit velocity of 107. Contact rates are average, and the chase rate is low. This dude, as long as he can continue to improve upon his ability to recognize spin and hit spin, which he's 19, he could be an offensive monster.
He's a huge human being. That's the only thing I have to add. Like 6'4", 240, but he somehow looks bigger than that. Like, yeah. This was the kid that was taken that was the big high school kid, like very Tristan Casas, but yes, lesser known than Tristan Casas. Where it was like, wow, you're just a mammoth human being for 18 years old. I can't wait to see what you look like when you're a full-blown adult. And it looks like there's going to be 70 power when he's a full-blown adult.
Yep. It seems like it. We got a max of 113 already. Again, 90th percentile of 107. And it's all fields. That's the impressive thing, too. It's such an advanced swing, the way he's able to kind of like control his body for such a big kid. There's some home runs the other way. I promise you, I think I've tweeted almost every single one of his home runs. So if you just want to search at Aram and Jack and then Isaac, you'll find probably a handful of videos of him just going deep, to all fields. Pull side, it's silly. But yeah, he can hit the ball the other way real hard. And he's a sneaky, decent athlete. I think he can be a fine defender at first base eventually. But yeah, it's all about the bat here. And I think it's going to be a damn good one. And I think it's part of the reason you look at the organizational depth. I think it was mostly because you have Caminero and you have Austin Shenton doing what he's doing up there. And you have, a handful of other guys that are really interesting. But I think Xavier Isaac's performance already made the Rays a little bit more okay with parting with a Kyle Manzardo to go get a an arm with control like Aaron Savali. I'm just in prospect mode mentally. But to get an arm with control like Aaron Savali, I think, for them that was a no-brainer. And thank goodness they did it now as we see their arms continue to kind of go down, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that what you see the contingency or you see the succession plan for Yandy Diaz. So Diaz is going to be there with Aranda as the backup right now. Aranda is the understudy. But when Xavier Isaac is ready, that's kind of when Yandy Diaz's contract is going to be up in Tampa.
And that's why the Rays are so annoying, because it's like every time the guy moves on and they don't pay him, then there's another guy just waiting in the wings and they regenerate.
Yeah, it's like, boom.
They're always in a good spot. Number 55. And this is like the pitching version of what we were talking about, where no matter where you rank him, you will be wrong. It's Jacob Misiorowski, right-handed pitching prospect to Milwaukee Brewers, who I think I've seen people lower just because of the perceived risk and the lack of command and all that good stuff. But I've also seen people willing to throw him super, super, super high, which I told you that, right? I told you, I'm like, after this futures game, watch how much he's going to fly up west. And that's exactly what happened. We've been talking about this guy since the beginning of the season, where like there was a couple starts that we saw and it was like, whoa, what the hell is this? And now obviously, it's become very popular, what kind of stuff this guy has. And understandably so. You get to throw on the big stage. We knew Pitching Ninja was going to pick that up and people were going to get excited. But there's a little bit more to pitching than just the stuff, right? Like
really?
There's an 80 grade fastball potentially. There's a 70 grade sweeping curveball. It's really closer to a sweeper and a plus cutter. But that might not matter if the command's 35. And that's what we're kind of waiting to see here is, does this 6'7" right-hander figure out a way to control his limbs enough to have average command? If he has average command, I think it's game over.
Bro, you're so lame. Pitching is all about stuff. You don't need command when this is gross. Come on.
Yeah.
In Biloxi, 5 starts. He's met his level, by the way. Like he got better in high A than he was in low A, but this guy's met his level in double. 21 innings. Try 36 punch outs. It's 15.5 per 9, but he's walking 7 guys per 9.
Yeah.
17 hits against him. 2 guys have taken him deep. Double's a weird spot, man. And like, we'll see what he's doing here, but the command is just like no bueno at all. He's walking 6 guys per 9 when you combine his numbers across all 3 levels that he's been at so far this year, but you keep shoving him up because he's punching out 15 guys per 9. Yeah. Like, I don't know. This is, I guess there's a bunch of reliever risk here, but I don't want to think about it because he's so young and he's already in Double A. He's at 71 in the 3rd innings right now. He's probably going to get to about 90 this year. We'll see what next year looks like. Next year is a big one for me because if this guy is good in double, get to triple, I'm like, okay, this is maybe the best pitching prospect in all of baseball. But if he has a high 4s, low 5s again, and he's walking 6 guys per 9 in double, I'm like, okay, let's start talking about the reliever risk here.
Yeah. It's kind of like the same Kyle Harrison type conversation, but in a different way, because again, there's a little bit more to the arsenal here. There's even a changeup that he mixes in. That's interesting. He is coming off probably his best professional start, which is interesting. And a good sign. I mean, he just went 6 innings his last start out of shutout ball, 1 hit, 3 walks, 12 Ks.
Sure.
My problem is this. It's not just the walks. He's also drilling dudes, which is scary when you're up to 102. But like in his last 5 games, guess how many hit by pitch? 16 walks. Guess how many hit by pitch?
Like 5, right? 5 or 6?
11.
That's a lot.
So like I never look at hit by pitch for a pitcher because like it's just not going to happen enough to be a factor. But like that, his hit by pitch rate might be higher than Robbie Snelling's walk rate.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive it's higher than Robbie Snelling's walk rate.
Okay, 11
hit by pitch. Two. How many? You want the actual numbers to like actually do this?
Oh no, here we go. 18 and 71 in the 3rd. All right, so let's do 18 divided.
You gotta do it by batter's face though, technically, but you can do hit by pitch per 9.
Oh, I was doing per 9. Yeah, hit by.
Yeah, that's fine. 9. That plays.
Times 9. He is 2.27 hit by pitch per 9.
Okay. And then Robbie Snelling.
I think he's around 2.5 walks per 9.
That's pretty close.
That's really close.
That's really close. That's so scary. But yeah, I mean, like that's the other side of it. When you're hitting that many guys, you got to kind of factor that in with the free passes. But last start looked really good. Again, to get into the stuff though, like the cutter's 92 to 94, and it's a joke. Like you're not hitting that if it's around the zone. The fastball when it's elevated is unhittable. When it's down, you've been talking to hitters who faced him. They said like the fastball when it's down like that, you feel like that's your shot. Like that's your shot, and that's when he gives up the home runs or hard contact is when he tugs the fastball down. Hitters feel like they can see that from that high release point, like it just kind of comes down right into the barrel. But when it stays up, it's really tough, especially with the cutter and the sweeper off of it. So, again, if it all clicks for him, he's I don't even know if we've seen anything like him. Like it's some crazy stuff.
Yep.
We get to 54, ironically, as we were just talking about, Kyle Manzardo. And here is Kyle Manzardo, Cleveland Guardians first base prospect. He's on he's finishing up a rehab assignment right now, and then should get rolling in AAA with the Guardians. We've talked a lot about Manzardo, so we don't have to rehash too much. We talked about him on the trades episode as well.
Yeah.
This is a guy that, to me, one of the safest offensive profiles in the minor leagues. The offensive output's a little diminished this year, and I think part of that was this focus to add more power, which is understandable for a first baseman. Yes, he hit 22 home runs, but look how many of those came in high A. And then also, you look at the EVs and the batted ball data, and it was like, okay, how much more power is in here? So he comes out this year, and his 90th percentile exit velocity jumps by 2 ticks. And most notably, his ground ball rate just absolutely gets slashed, which was already low. It gets slashed by another 10%. I think he has one of the highest fly ball rates in the minor leagues, and in AAA, definitely the lowest ground ball rate are up there. As a result, I think it took away a little bit of that feel to hit, because that's the calling card, right? Is the plus to borderline plus hit tool.
Yeah.
The raw power is above average at best. So there's this balance he has to strike of, yes, I do want to tap into more power, but I don't want to hit 240. I don't want to have a 267 BABIP. And that's what he's got right now, because the launch angle is straight upwards. And this is a guy that has a phenomenal feel to hit and can shoot the ball the other way for a base hit, who can spoil pitches. And I think he kind of got away from that, trying to be this power hitting first baseman a little bit. And I think there's going to be this middle ground that he will find, that will be 20 home runs and hitting for average. And I think that's ultimately what he's trying to settle in on here.
I think the best version of Manzardo, because he probably came into this year thinking, okay, I'm going to hit 30, but I'll hit 260. I don't think 260 and 30 is the best option for Manzardo. I think 320 is the best option for Manzardo. And that is a guy that is, not seen anywhere close to as often as the 260 for 30 guy.
Yeah, it's Josh Naylor this year, right? You look at Josh Naylor this year. He's played 96 games. He's 306, 346, 500 slash line with 15 homers. I think that's what you dream on with Manzardo, is something that looks like that. And again, I like seeing a hitter trying to do things to, maximize his ceiling. And sometimes you got to go all the way to this feel to kind of get back to the middle.
The Goldilocks
get away
approach.
From, if you have a feel all the way to the left and a feel all the way to the right, sometimes getting to that feel all the way to the right is what helps get you to the middle where you always wanted to be. And I know that's very vague, but that's the best way I can describe it. It's all about kind of mentality, feels, and so many different things for these hitters. And I mean, he's tapped into another level of pull side power though, man. He's popped to 112.
Yeah.
And when I look at that, I'm like, okay, it's in there. That's good to know. Now just leverage your counts. 2-0, get that 112 swing off, but don't get that 112 swing off all the time.
You don't need to.
It's okay to shoot one the other way for a base hit. And I think he's finding that balance. And I think, that's why the Guardians love him, right? If he was the sellout for power guy, they're not asking for him in this deal. So I think the Guardians are also going to kind of push him to go back to a little bit more of who he was last year, with that added power. Because it's not just because he's swinging harder. He added strength. And I think it'll all kind of come together to be a really nice profile offensively.
No doubt.
We get to 53, Gavin Stone. Gavin Stone is a guy that, I think we were kind of hoping would be graduated by now. Technically is not, and is on a really nice stretch in AAA, which is really important here with the Dodgers, because I think he can help them. We're waiting to see when Walker Buehler will come back and how he can help them. But Gavin Stone, he kind of ditched this bigger slider for this harder cutter in the low 90s. And it's finally given him a third pitch that he can trust, because we knew the changeup, that's a diabolical pitch, Jack. I mean, that's one of our favorite. There was a point in time where I used to just unsolicited text you Gavin Stone changeups, just because they're screwballs. They're unbelievable. Fastball was down a tick to start the year. Now it's back to 95, and that's a really good sign too. But the fastball is never going to be this 70 grade heater, because a little bit flat. So he needed this third look. He finds this low 90s cutter, man. And I mean, I don't know if you have it queued up. He's pitching in the PCL, so the ERA may be slightly inflated, but I just kind of want to look more at the whiff numbers. He's been really good over the last 3-4 starts.
Yeah. On the year, 19 starts in the PCL. He's got a 5.1 ERA, 91 2/3, 11 homers against him, 52 earned runs, and 91 2/3. So Stone, 5.11, take it with a grain of salt because it's in the PCL, but across high A, double, and triple last year, this guy had a 1.48. So he was so clearly the best pitcher in minor league baseball. The thing that gets me is I have no idea where his confidence level is. 28 hits in 12 big league innings. 28 hits. That's a massacre.
Because what happened is you had this slightly subdued fastball. You have the unbelievable changeup. Scouting report was he's got one pitch probably. And so everyone was shutting anything down that started at the knees. Okay, shut that changeup down. And now they're ambushing the fastball. Now he's got this cutter. It gives him a different look. But to your point, I do think it's stifled his confidence a little bit because even in these last 4 starts and trips, he's got a 2.57, but he's walked 13 in 21 innings. I've never seen him walk guys like that. So maybe he's nibbling a little bit. Maybe it's getting used to the cutter. I don't know. But there's some interesting, I don't know. I want to see him back at the big leagues and see how he does this time around. But seems like he's still working through it all and trying to figure it all out. And I think you could justify having him a little bit lower on this list.
For sure.
This was another one where it was kind of hard to figure out, but I liked the trend that I saw. I liked, with the cutter being involved here. I think there's just a really good chance at a big league 3 or 4, but I mean, let me turn the tables on you. Would you rather have Gavin Stone or Jacob Misiorowski?
Oh man, I think I'd rather have Misiorowski.
Yeah. And they're stacked. So it's you can go one way or another, but Stone's 24, Misiorowski's younger. But Stone has seemed durable. It's interesting. He's just a tough guy to rank on the other side of things. But if it all clicks for him, he could be a really consistent and solid starter.
102 from a guy that is a starting pitcher is just so rare. I have to go with the guy from 102. Yeah.
100%. I'm with you on that. 52. Gabriel Gonzalez. We talked about him when we broke down the Mariners system a few episodes ago. Outfielder who, there's few guys that have enjoyed more prospect helium, I think, this year, Jack, than Gabriel Gonzalez. It's for a 19-year-old to kind of really hit his stride the way he has, both in just coming out hot and low A, and then just coming out extremely hot and high A. He's come down to earth a little bit. And I think that was natural given that his approach is just extremely aggressive. Yeah. But I think there's a borderline plus feel to hit here, and I think he'll develop into a plus hitter once he cuts down on the chase. The power, EV wise, is slightly above average at best, but he gets into it really well, which is weird because he posts above average ground ball rates, but when he hits it in the air, it goes. He just backspins balls. He's just one of those guys that's always going to overperform the data. And man, he's just got a knack for hitting. It's just that simple. And at 19 years old to do what he's doing, I think there's a lot to like here with this Mariners prospect, and he's got a lot of momentum building.
Yeah, numbers in high A are a little weird. He's hitting $188, but he's got 7 homers in 26 games. So the power's been there, but that 348 clip in low A is not there at all, which is just so odd. The power is way up. The bat to ball is way down. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just kind of bizarre what's happening from low A to high A because it's almost the antithesis of who he was in low A.
He also went nuclear when he first got to high A.
Yeah,
and then over his last
ice cold.
Last 15 games, 123, 186, 185. Yeah. And again, that my concern was the approach. And you got a 35% chase rate in that span. He's 19 years old. And again, I still think just what he's done already this year has given him so much helium. And he's going to learn. And this is another one of those examples hey, we're going to challenge you. And you're going to see that some of the shortcomings in your approach, can get exposed against better pitching. And that's exactly what's happening. So I think, he'll get there. And the feel to hit is just too hard to teach. The game power is impressive given that he's not, lighting balls up EV wise. And there's a lot to dream on here. Also, pretty good defender in the corner. Big arm, which is fun too. So definitely a guy to watch, see how he finishes the season, but he's going through it as a 19-year-old in high A over the last 15. And I'm sure the scouting report says, let him get himself out. He swings a lot, and he'll have to adjust from that.
Yep.
Next up, another Mariner. We got the Mariner stack here. It's Harry Ford. And Harry Ford is the opposite side of the coin in terms of approach. This dude never swings. And I love it. 14% chase rate on the season. A little bit more whiff than you'd like to see. It's not egregious or anything, and that's why you don't see a high strikeout rate. But in terms of the contact rates, they're kind of average, maybe slightly below. But there's a dude that hits them all in the air pretty consistently. Exit velocities are basically right on par with average, and the approach is elite. And that's helped him be extremely consistent professionally, get on base at an extremely high clip, and continue to develop defensively.
The old 20-year-old catcher that has 23 stolen bases and is hitting 255 with a 415 OBP. He's walked 93 times in 105 games. Nobody does that. Nobody does that when they're 20 years old in high A.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to the 14% chase rate, the swing decisions, and again, like he gets into it a little bit more than you'd expect for a guy of his size. He's small.
He had a sweet walk-off homer the other day.
Yeah. Dude, he's fun. He's fun. How many bags does he have?
23. He's 23 for 31.
Okay, it could be a little bit more efficient, but I love it. Like, that's fun. It's just a fun profile. I think if he can develop a little bit more defensively, which he continuously has gotten better and better, you got a really interesting and fun catcher here. Even if the power doesn't totally come together, he's going to walk. That he's, at least going to hit a little bit. And he can fly and at least sneak out a fair amount of home runs with the ability to hit the ball in the air. He's just a really unique and fun profile.
Yep.
We get to number 50, Noah Schultz, left-handed pitching prospect with the Chicago White Sox. And unfortunately, I think I just saw a report that he went down with a shoulder impingement.
Yes.
That could be relatively minor. Impingement kind of just means, hey, discomfort. It could be a small little tweak. It could also be something that's worse. So we're off to monitor and see here. But in terms of Noah Schultz, the pitcher, this is another guy who's just had major helium this year in the White Sox organization as a 6'9" lefty. Throws way more strikes than I think anybody would have anticipated, with really good stuff. I mean, he's just overpowered guys at the lower levels. And to pound the strike zone the way he has as a 6'9" lefty has been pretty cool to see.
Schultz has been flat out awesome, and I'm just going to run you through the numbers here. In 10 starts with Low A Canopolis, 27 innings, 17 hits, 4 earned runs, 38 strikeouts, 6 walks. That's 13 Ks per 9. That's 2 flat walks per 9. Now, qualitatively, watch him, watch the delivery, go watch it, go pull up a YouTube video and tell me you don't see a little sail in there. I think that's what White Sox fans are dreaming on, because this is a guy that controls that long-limbed body so ridiculously well, and you've got that command. Sale didn't have that command coming up, but Sale had that left side. You've got no idea where it's coming from until it's coming at you, and I think that's a lot of what Schultz has.
Sale also didn't throw nearly this hard at age 20, which could be a good and a bad thing. Schultz sitting 95 this year. It was down slightly in his last outing, which I think kind of tipped him off about what was going on. Slider is disgusting. It's plus. And then there's already a little bit of a feel for a change, which floored me. I know we've only seen him throw around 30 this year, like 30 changeups, which is, like a handful a start. But there's been some good ones in there. And that was shocking for me for a 6'9" high school lefty to have this feel for the changeup too. I think there's potential for plus fastball, plus slider, and an average to above average changeup from that release point. See you later. It could be really fun. So hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he's okay. And I'd imagine this is probably the last time we see him this year. Maybe
I would think so.
Depending on the prognosis.
Yeah.
Depending on the prognosis, maybe he could go throw a few innings in the fall league if they want to play it safe and not pitch him the rest of this year and then do that. Or, we'll just see him next year. But I think he's already shown enough to be considered one of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball and one of the best pitching prospects in baseball in terms of upside.
I think so too.
We get to 49. Luisangel Acuña, new Mets prospect. How about some Mets on this list, which we didn't have many in previous years, but that's what happens when you're sellers and you are also buyers through money. You're buying prospects. They bought Acuña, and I love it. I love it, because I think this is a guy that instantly becomes one of, if not, their best prospects, depending on who you graduate. And it's just been fun to watch this guy develop. It's been really impressive to see him, develop as a hitter, develop as a fielder, turn into one of the best base stealers in professional baseball at 21 years old. It's far different from his brother. It's not going to be 40 homers. It's not multiple 80 grade tools, but I see above average hit. I see above average raw power. I see plus speed, and I see a plus glove. And that's a fun player and a good player and the kind of guy that, like, I think every system wants. And clearly the Mets did.
An all-around safe player. Like they've got so much volatility in New York. Like, such is the burden of being the New York Mets. I think McNeil, that's already proven to be like a bad extension, unfortunately. Like, who's to say Acuña can't be your second baseman of the future?
Oh my God, he'd be one of the best defenders in the sport.
So come on, like, let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, let's make him the second baseman of the future, and you pair that middle infield tandem of Acuña and Lindor, and you've got some magic up the middle.
There's some like Nico Horner adjacency there if you put him at second base.
Dude,
it's
Horner
not going to be
Swanson is must see, and Lindor and Acuna would be even more must see.
Lindor and Acuna would be, oh my gosh, defensively would be insanity. Insanity. The two things that I really wanted to hit on really quick is Acuna had a bit of a pushy swing, which we talk about, like, firing the barrel kind of like firing your hands forward, and how that can make you kind of feel like velocity gets in on you instead of kind of snapping the barrel back. And that's something that, like, Acuna, with the setup, he has the same setup as his brother. It's kind of synonymous with like holding the back hip, right, and staying back on the baseball and hitting from there. If you're moving forward, you're moving towards a baseball that's coming at you 95 miles an hour. You're giving yourself less time. You're crowding yourself. And he crowded himself because it's really hard from that hands out setup, the way they set up, both him and his brother Ronald. Like, it's hard to stay back, and Ronald has perfected that. But Ronald struggled with that off of the ACL tear, and you saw what happened last year. Luisangel has really figured out kind of how to hold the back hip a little bit better, how to stay back and kind of how to fire off of the back leg a bit better. And you're seeing that. And I think the biggest example of that is his OPS last year against fastballs 94 plus was 599. His OPS at the time of the write-up against fastballs 94 plus this year, 763. And it's gotten better and better and better, as has his ability to hit breaking balls, as has his exit velocities, as has his spray charts of just using the whole field. So instead of kind of pushing forward and being heavy on the front foot, he's staying back better. He's giving himself more time. And I think it's resulted in more power, better swing decisions, and the ability to hit velocity better. So I'm excited about Luisangel Acuña. How many stolen bases does he have, Jack?
Ooh, a lot. Let me pull up the exact number.
And we'll move to 48.
Yeah, Luisangel Acuña so far this year, he is 50 for 57 in the stolen base department.
50 for 57.
And he's 8 for 10 with the Mets, with the Rumble Ponies, sorry.
Yeah, 90th percentile exit velocity of 103.5. I do think that there's above average power here as he continues to try to lift the ball a bit more.
But Aram, he's hitting 209 in 17 games with the Rumble Ponies. He sucks.
I think people really underestimate, even when it's the same level. I know you're joking, but people will always underestimate like what a trade kind of does for a hitter, like or for a player, period. Like, the game plans are different, the coaching is different, the situation is different, the pressure is different. Like, it takes a little bit of time.
Also, and no offense to the fine people of Binghamton, New York, but Frisco, Texas, and Binghamton, New York, they are not the same.
And the ball doesn't fly the same either. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Number 48, Tink Hence, right-handed pitching prospect with the St. Louis Cardinals. They don't come more athletic or electric than Tink Hence. He's had a bit of a snag of late in Double-A, and Double-A is an understandable challenge for him. And as they finally kind of taken the training wheels off a little bit in terms of letting him throw 75, 80 pitches. And that's been encouraging to see. What hasn't been encouraging to see is struggles to keep the ball in the yard and, it's hard to pitch in that league, man. It's hard to pitch there. He's 21 years old. He has a potential for 2+ pitches, 3 above average that he usually throws for a strike. I think he's been, struggling to I think trust his stuff to a degree so far this year since being promoted to Double-A. But I mean, the track record last year, what we saw from him last year was just comical. I think he had a whip of .88 in low A in 52 1/3 innings. But I think, some of the things that he's still working on in terms of the feel for the changeup, consistency of the curveball, fastball shape, like all those things have been challenged more in Double-A. And I think this will be a good learning curve for him.
Yeah, and he's going to start next year in Double. He might spend the entire year in Double. He's not a guy that I think the Cardinals can fast track, like Jordan Walker, like Mason Winn. The Cardinals are kind of the ones, the Cardinals and I guess San Diego now are the ones that fast track their guys that they feel like can be, some of the better prospects in the game. Tink Hence, he was generational in low A. He was really good in high A, and now he's not that good in Double-A. So let's see him get good in Double-A. And Hence maybe the first guy in a long time that we've seen prove it at every level in the minor leagues.
Yeah, it's true. With the way that they've handled him, he's going to have to prove it at every level. Maybe he goes from Double to the bigs. That might be the one exception. Because we've seen guys kind of go from the Texas League, go straight to the bigs. But he's had to prove it low A, high A, fall league, and now Double. And I think this is the first adversity we've seen him face. So I think, what would you say, Jack? Would you say take the adversity with a grain of salt? It's probably a good thing. I mean, this guy's been mowing through every stop. It's okay to run into some trouble as a high school arm in Double-A now.
He's 20 years old in Double-A. Yes, it's okay. Yeah. That's the thing, man. The people that are jumping out on Edgar Caro should be jumping out on Tink Hence, but we didn't jump out on Edgar Caro. So,
oh my gosh! Even since we last talked about Edgar Caro, go look at his numbers since he's joined. Talk about trades being easy or hard for guys. It's been easy for him. Look at his numbers since joining the White Sox org. It's a joke.
Yep.
Fly through these last few here. Bo Naylor is a big leaguer we're ranking. When we do the end of season update, it won't be as comprehensive. We'll just be talking about the guys who made it, and get added in because it won't be that many graduations. Bo Naylor is going to graduate, but Jack, I think we're seeing it come together for Bo Naylor here on both sides of the ball. Of course, there's going to be this learning curve offensively. I'm not expecting him to, immediately mash. He's kind of your classic guy that, probably is going to take 200-300 plate appearances to finally get to the point where he's a league average hitter because he's a catcher as well. But he's graded out as an above average catcher. He's limited the running game well. The blocking and framing has been good. And you know what? He's walking. He's kept the strikeout rate at a palatable rate. I know that he's got a 76 WRC plus and he's hitting 198 through 40 games.
Yeah.
I've come away encouraged. I don't know about you. I've come away encouraged. I don't see any massive red flags, and I'm seeing the player that we hoped he could be slowly seeping through here. And I think he's going to come out next year and look really good and be a really solid catcher for them.
He's a stupid good athlete. And I wish he wasn't on this list in the way that I wish he graduated. I wish they went with him on opening day and gave him a full year as opposed to the Zanino and was it Luke?
He wouldn't have been worse.
He wouldn't have been worse. No,
what he's doing right now is already better than what they had.
Who was the Guardians' backup? I'm blanking on this right now. It wasn't Luke Maile because Maile's in Cincinnati, right?
It wasn't Leon, right?
It was who was it? Cam Gallagher. That was the backup. Zanino and Cam Gallagher. Come on now. It's you should have just gone with Naylor. But I watched Naylor dominate in triple, and now he's getting his feet wet. And the Guardians aren't competing for anything right now, so. Yeah, man, I think this is huge for Bo Naylor, and I'm glad to see that he's been graduated. And I mean, he's made some plays defensively behind the play that I'm like, wow, you are a different level athlete.
He's a positive WAR player right now, which is honestly rare for rookie catchers. He's a half a win player through 40 games. I know that's not the best thing in the world, but for a guy that's kind of gotten thrown in the fire midseason when they paid Zanino and people thought Zanino was going to be the guy. Again, this production in the beginning of the year, instead of the negative WAR they got from Gallagher and Zanino, and I'm not saying the Guardians would be in the playoffs, but they'd be in a better position with literally this. If it never changed, the 198, 281, 355 with the defense they're getting would have been better than what they got. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think he's going to be a 240 hitter, with above average to plus power, good athleticism, and he's turned into a solid defensive catcher. It's fun to see.
Cam Gallagher, 127 plate appearances. What's his OPS plus?
18.
-4.
Yeah. Okay. Enough said. Like, geez. But a rookie can't do that. Like, okay. 46. Recent friend of the program, Jackson Jobe.
Yeah.
Man, go listen to that interview. If you think the ranking is high, if you've been like underwhelmed for whatever reason by the stuff, go listen to that interview and then you'll be even more amped up on the makeup. But there's no reason to be underwhelmed by the stuff. The stuff's been really good. Jackson Jobe, since coming back, has been awesome. It was really important context talking to him as well. And this is what I had heard from some sources through, and I get to pull the sources card. What I heard through some sources was that the Jobe injury wasn't bad. Like, even when it went down, it was like really good prognosis. They're just going to be very careful. And that's exactly what Jobe said on the interview. He's like, just very aware and just like, hey, I was the number 2 pick, or number 3 pick.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm a high school arm, big risk. I get why they were careful with me, but I had a lot of time to work on shit, basically, was what he was saying. It's like, I had a lot of time to be throwing full strength bullpens. And I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing how developed he is. It was a little bit of a back inflammation issue, so it wasn't like it was an arm thing. And I mean, he's averaging 97 miles an hour with his fastball this year. The slider is a tick up. That sweepy, nasty pitch is sitting at 84. The changeup, dude, where did this come? It was so fun talking. And check the live breakdown we did with him, because that was so eye-opening too, about how much more confidence he has in this changeup now. He throws it 13% of the time, 73% strike rate on the changeup. And then he's mixing in this cutter that he just started throwing, and he talks about that as well. 71% strike rate on the cutter. So, Jack, we've got a pitch breakdown here of 50% fastball, which is ticked up to 97 miles an hour, a slider, sweepy slider at 84 that he throws around 25% of the time, a changeup that he throws at 13% of the time at 86, and a cutter that he throws 12% of the time at 91. He's got all these different looks he can give you. He's confident, as we did in the live pitching breakdown, sequencing, going to any pitch and any count. And dude, like, it's looking good. It's looking good overall. I know the last couple starts have been like not as sharp for him, but I'm loving what I'm seeing so far.
If he only had a fastball and slider and he was a 45 command, he's a top 100 arm. With 60 command, with 50 present, 60 future, if it was just fastball slider, he's a top 70 prospect in baseball. But the cutter and the changeup are what makes him top 50.
Yeah.
He's got the makings of future ace of the Detroit Tigers.
Yep. I'm with you. I really am. And I know, again, like the last 2 outings have been a little rough. I'm not too worried about it. I'm not.
You also have to tick differently, and you should go listen to that interview because you realize that this guy ticks differently. And we get to talk to a guy every week on the Just Baseball show that just ticks differently. And there's a reason he's the ace of the LA Dodgers. I mean, Kershaw, but like co-ace. He's the co-ace of the LA Dodgers.
And Walker Buehler. Yeah. And it's funny. Jobe mentioned Buehler as like an inspiration behind the cutter in his arsenal. And, you can see there's some similarities there in terms of the different ways they can attack you, the pitchability, the ability to tunnel different offerings. It's similar.
Aces find edges when they don't need them. And Jobe did not need an edge with a cutter and a changeup. He could have gotten to the big leagues on fastball slider alone, but he found 2 competitive edges in a cutter and a changeup.
100%. We get to 45, and another guy that I just should not be ranking. Yeah. Like, we're sick of ranking this guy. Joey Ortiz, shortstop, Baltimore Orioles. I mean, he hits the ball so hard. He consistently hits the ball. I know the power numbers are never going to be crazy because he's not a big lift guy, but he hits the ball so hard that I think he's going to consistently be a pretty high batting average guy. And we've seen that, if you look at if you take his last, I believe it would be 103, or is it 113 games at the AAA level? I'm pretty sure he's hitting over 340 with a near 400 on base and a 540 slug. Like, this guy has nothing left to prove in triple. It has to be boring for him at this point. And not to mention, he was viewed as a glove first guy. Like, he's an elite defender at shortstop. He's a plus defender at the very least. So, you're getting a guy that's 55 to 60 hit, 55 raw power, 55 run, 60 glove, and he's just rotting away in AAA right now. It's driving me nuts.
Rotting. He and Michael Busch, 103 games in AAA last year and this year. He's slashing 340, 394, 543.
Yeah, I just don't want to watch this guy in AAA anymore.
Let's cut the shit, man. Like, let's just get him on mass and let's put him in the Orioles.
Yeah, get Mateo to the bench, and let's watch Ortiz play a little bit more. I mean, you're talking 88% zone contact, 89% zone contact, and a 90th percentile of 106.
Yeah,
like from a data perspective, it's money as well. I'm tired of watching this guy. I think he's going to be a really, really consistently good shortstop at the big league level. I don't know if they're going to play him there, obviously, but if you put him on any other team, I think he's a very solid and consistent big league shortstop who has the upside to have, I think, some really exciting offensive potential. Got to cut down the chase rate slightly. That might be the one reason why he's not up there. And I think he's been trying to do that, and that's the one thing that's kind of elevated for him. But again, I've seen enough. I love this guy.
Yeah.
44, AJ Smith-Shawver. This is like the funny part of the rankings where it's just like guys that have kind of been all over the place. Smith-Shawver's really settled in over the last couple starts in AAA. We talked about him a lot a couple episodes ago of just like how to look at him in terms of value, because he started the year in high A after like a meh year in low A and somehow ends up in the big leagues in a span of, on May 16th or April 16th, he's in high A. Mm-hmm. And by June 4th, he's in the big leagues. That's crazy. Yes. So there's been some understandable hiccups. He's survived in the big leagues. He's survived in triple. And now I think he's starting to really settle in and look pretty good in triple. He's 20 years old. I think he's been aggressively pushed all over the place. And I still think he's one of the best pitching prospect arms we have.
Yeah, and we had this combo about Smith-Shawver during the pitcher episode. Like, are we looking at him in a different way because he has struggled a little bit in the major league level? I think yes. So this guy should be viewed as one of the better pitching prospects in all of baseball, and that's how we're viewing him.
Yep, I'm with you. And I mean, like, it's one of those things you don't want to pit it against him for being able to be challenged the way that he was. And I think you can make the case that he's even higher, because if they kept him in high A or double, as we talked about in this, I think it was also like the topics conversation that we had like a couple episodes ago on a Friday. He would have been carving through high A and double and probably be in the same conversation as like a Cade Horton type, maybe. So it's hard to really rank him specifically there. Got a couple more. I know you got to bounce, Jack. So Josue De Paula, Dodgers outfielder, 43 on the list. I'm a big De Paula guy. I know that you're all the way into. I mean, this guy, like, the power is still a work in progress. He's still trying to find that, and I think he will, because he's a big dude with plenty of room on the frame. But what I've been floored with is how advanced the swing is and how comfortable he looks at the plate and the contact rates. I mean, it's just really impressive stuff. I think this is going to be one of those guys that could go nuclear next year. He just turned 18 years old.
Yeah.
He has all this room to add strength. The contact rates are borderline plus. And again, like, you can see so much room in his frame. The chase rates are low. This is my pick next year to go like supernova, I think.
So he's 18 years old, but he's not in Double-A yet. So
yeah, he's cooked.
He's cooked. No, this is one of those guys where, like, go watch video of him swing a bat, whether it's on X or on YouTube. Like, just go watch him and tell us that he isn't a top 50 guy. And I know, like, hey, if you look at the baseball reference page and you see a 750 OPS, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. Go watch him swing a bat. Yeah. For 18 years old, no 18-year-old.
17. It's his age 17 season, really, too. It's such an advanced swing. The power will come, I promise. And with the approach being where it's at, I think this is one of the best teenage prospects we have right now. And it's only going to get better and better. Again, this is my, like, supernova breakout candidate guy for next year. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. One of my favorite young swings that we've got in the minor leagues, with so much more room to add impact. 42. Talk about impact. Termarr Johnson, second base prospect with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Dude, this guy hits the crap out of the ball. And a little scary moment the other day. Took a ball off his hand, comes back in, plays the next day, hits a home run. He has really settled into high A, which is encouraging to see because I thought this could be a test for him. And it has been a test. Like, he's definitely struggled with the consistency, but he's definitely started to tap into a lot more power. He's starting to walk a little bit more. And he's holding his own up there. It's been impressive to see. He's 19 years old. We've talked about how the hit tool is not the 70 grade hit tool that I think people celebrated it as, but the power is well above what anybody gave him credit for, I think, at the beginning of the year or at draft time as well. He's elevated his stock for me this year with plus power, with a good enough feel to hit and a really good approach, sub 20% chase rate. Termarr has the chance to be an offensive monster from the left side of the box at second base.
Well, in early returns is that he's K'ing less in high A, which is really interesting. Now, this guy is whippy as shit, and we've talked about him. We talked about him when he got that promotion to high A. But, dude, like I think getting out of low A, getting away from low A pitching where it's, effectively wild is going to be massive for a guy like this.
Especially when we talk about everything we talked about with Dylan Cruz. Like, I know he's not as advanced and there's more whiff, but this is a guy that's really selective, really good feel for the strike zone. And I think, this will help him being in high A, like you said, and it has. We've seen the strikeout rate drop. We've seen the walk rate sustain. It's not 22%, but it's 17%. And he's been really productive. So, I'm excited. I think Termarr proving it here in high A is really going to help solidify his stock as, one of the better, again, talk about teenage hitting prospects in the game.
It's a young 19.
Last but not least, we got Ricky Tiedemann, left-handed pitching prospect with the Toronto Blue Jays, who, if healthy, you can see the future value here. He's probably the only 60 plus future value guy we have outside of the top 20. If healthy, Ricky Tiedemann's an ace. That's the question, though. Does he stay healthy? And I can't predict that. I can't project that. It's been a little bit of a struggle for him since returning to double. He had the most comical rehab appearance I've ever seen in Dunedin, where he went 3 innings of 1 hit, no walks, no Ks, no walks, no runs, 9 Ks. So every guy was retired via the strikeout. We've had 2 appearances for New Hampshire in Double-A, one where he didn't make it out of the first. The last one was a lot more encouraging, 3 2/3, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks. That's good to see. It's fastball that is mid to upper 90s, touching 100, that gets on you from a 6'4", long release point, 3/4, just gross. Talk about Salas. Here's another one. Slider that's downright unhittable, and a changeup that when he has it is also plus. We've got 270 pitches and a 60, and the command has shown when he's healthy to be above average. But when guys are banged up, it's hard to repeat that release point the same way, and I think that's impacted him. We've seen above average command. I think this guy, to me, is everything that people wanted Kyle Harrison to be.
Yes.
And it's just about the health. And, again, we can't predict that, but Ricky Tiedemann has a chance to be really special.
He's a strikeout artist, man. Across the last 2 years, 36 innings in low A, 16 Ks per 9. 37 innings in high A, 13 Ks per 9. 28 innings in double A, 14 Ks per 9. He's a strikeout savant. And listen, he's not walking 7 guys per 9. So don't walk anybody and don't get hurt.
Here are the numbers by pitch real quick. Fastball last year, 150 opponent batting average. Changeup last year, 170 opponent batting average. Slider last year, 130 opponent batting average. What are you looking for? What are you keyholing? What are you trying to hit? Good luck. His real name is Tariq Lenny Tiedemann.
Yes.
That's also awesome.
That's sick.
That's a sick name. But we'll wrap up on that. I already kept Jack longer. I know he's got to get to the ballpark, but that'll do it for this episode of the Call Up. We've got 2 more to go, 40 to 21 and then 20 to number 1. Again, the link is in the episode description if you want to read along on all of these write-ups. As always, thank you for listening. We look forward to talking prospects with you tomorrow.